to see some good changes made to it, and so we're working on those. So that's been taking up a lot of the Senate time. The first 3 weeks, because all those were introduced as Senate bills, they came through the Senate first, and we had a couple of days where we had almost nothing but marijuana on the agenda. And that's because the Senate wanted to get them out. We want to try to get them done the first 3 weeks, and then push them over to the House side, and then they can then deal with them for a while, and then kind of clear our docket for other matters. So that's been taking up a lot of my time the first 3 weeks here. And then another subject that I've been working on is workforce housing. Representative Chase actually was the chair of that summer study committee, and actually all 3 of us were on that. So we have a lot of interest among among your district's legislators in the topic of housing, and so we've been working on that. The number of bills isn't so great there, but the topic is very important. $200 million proposed in the governor's budget, and so that's a lot of money. And there'll be some good discussions over the next coming weeks over how best to spend that, how best we can stimulate housing across the state, because it is a need that we have, because communities can't grow without proper housing. So that's my time.
Thank you, Senator. As we prepare to move into the opportunity for you to ask questions of the legislators, first of all, let me go back and introduce myself. I'm Tom Hansen. I'm a member of the Government Affairs Committee, and ordinarily our chairman, Mike Held, would be serving as moderator, but he had a conflict that came up, and so I got the baton got passed off to me. We should also recognize the presence, participation of our friends in the media, the Daily Plainsman, Performance Radio, and as I mentioned earlier, this is being recorded or being broadcast on YouTube, so it's being live, but then it also is being recorded for future playback on Channel 6. As we move into the questions, I'll ask you to come to the podium and introduce yourself for the benefit of those that are listening out over the media, and ask your question. And remember, this is an opportunity to ask a question to the legislator, not to make a statement or to lecture the legislators. You'll have that opportunity to bend their ear after the close of this session. But we welcome your questions. And if you would prefer to write your question down on a card, Arne Calise has some cards in his hand and a pencil, and so you have your opportunity to do that way. So with that in mind, we're ready for the first question. This is a little bit like I was at a funeral prayer service the other night, and getting into people were given an opportunity to stand up and share some memories, and it's always like pulling teeth to get the first person to come forward, but somebody has the opportunity to be first, and so I see a question coming right now.
Get it started, huh? Brian Smith, City of Huron. With the governor's proposal of the $200 million in workforce housing proposal, what would you anticipate, or how would you anticipate that would be assigned if that were approved? On an application basis or by municipality? Or?
We're still working on the procedure and the policies for that. That's probably been one thing that I've been working on more over the last 2 weeks in the legislature than doing anything else. When the governor proposed the $200 million for workforce housing at their budget address in December, she put it out there that it would be a grant proposal, much like the LIP grant, the Local Infrastructure Improvement Plans. That's been in process for years, but she wants to allocate all $200 million to that program, to where that would be on a state would match a third, the local community would match a third, and then a developer would have 1/3 involvement. And what we heard throughout our testimony throughout the legislative summer study on workforce housing last summer, all 3 of us, was that we had good testimony from all over the state of South Dakota. And we had one meeting in Pierre, we had one meeting in Rapid City, one meeting in Sioux Falls, and then we finalized back in Pierre. What we heard time and time again was infrastructure development was one thing that communities really needed to have in their community to develop housing and workforce housing. So many communities need help getting sewers and water and sewer systems throughout their community to get that new arm or that new development going in their community. And so one thing that we as a committee, there was 20 legislators that sat on that, and we said, we don't want to sit on a summer study in 2021 and not have the fortitude and the foresight to look out long-term, because we're not going to solve the workforce housing issue in 2022. It's just not going to go away. You just can't throw unlimited dollars to it and say, yeah, it fixed the problem. This is a situation that's going to go on and on and on for years to come. So we're trying to work together with that program. We're not saying that the LIP program is a bad program, but we'd like to have another program that works parallel with that and allocate maybe half of the $200 million to that program, that it would be a program that local communities could use as part of a TIF district, low interest loans, and that would be a revolving loan fund that would go on in perpetuity. So we're trying to make use of that $100 million that we would maybe split off from her $200 million, that we can develop a program that will be there available for communities for years to come. So we put a lot of work and a lot of effort into it. Hopefully we'll start to see that overall idea come together within the next week, so stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Good question.
Yeah, good foresight on the infrastructure need before the development. So.
Okay,
Anything else you want to add?
David?
No, I think Representative Chase hit that right on the head there. He's very involved in that discussion, so he probably knows the policy the best of all three of us. I have a bill I think will be coming up this week on the infrastructure issue, allowing some use of the Housing Opportunity Fund, which is a fund administered by South Dakota Housing, to clarify that you can use those funds also for infrastructure-related needs, because that is what we heard of so much during the summer study, that developers and communities need help, not just with the house itself, but actually the infrastructure that gets to it, because that's very expensive. So to help with those communities, we want to help broaden the opportunities to make those developments. And so that's a bill I believe will be up in Senate Commerce Tuesday or Thursday.
Tom, if we can just continue on. Tom, if we can continue on, there's a lot of things we could talk about on housing. And it's really interesting because of the 20 members of the legislature that served on the Summer Workforce Housing Committee, the three of us were all on it. There's no other district that had all three legislators on that committee. Kind of hand-selected and helped make sure that my two colleagues from this district were on there to work with me. But we had a great committee discussion throughout the state of South Dakota, and it's an issue across the state of South Dakota. It doesn't make any difference if it's Huron, Sioux Falls, or DeSmet, or even a small town in western South Dakota. If you take any community in South Dakota and tell me your three largest challenges, housing is going to be one of the top three, regardless of where you're at. So we took a lot of time, and we had a lot of involvement, and we had a great committee discussion. We had great people come in from planning districts. We had people come in from financiers to developers. You name it, we had it. We had the testimony. We had ideas, we had concepts, we had finance people that told us this is what you need to do to set up a long-range plan and have funding available for years to come. And now the bills are starting to come out into the legislature. I introduced one, it was House Bill 1153, which deals with tax deeds. No, excuse me, it's 1154, dealing with tax deeds. What that is if Beetle County has a property that somebody fails to pay taxes on, it's a residential structure anywhere in Beetle County. If it's a residential structure, before they can take ownership of that property has to be delinquent 5 years in property taxes. So we've got a bill that brings it up to 3 years. And it cuts 2 years off. And the purpose of that 2 years is that any house that sits empty for 5 years is probably going to be in such poor condition after 5 years that it's probably need to be torn down rather than renovated for a living structure. So if we can get it after the year 3 rather than year 5, there's still a chance that we can maybe reclaim that property and get it back on the tax rolls and provide workforce housing for somebody within that community. Another one that was dropped, that was Senate Bill 114, Hermanodon out of the T area, is the prime in the Senate. I'm the prime in the House. If it gets to the House, I'm recommending that the Senate sends it to the House and we can debate it there. But what Senate Bill 114 is excise tax rebate. If you build a house, if you build a new structure, at the end of construction, you tally all of the excise taxes that you paid on the property, send it to the Department of Revenue for a 2% excise tax rebate. 2% doesn't sound like a lot, but on a $300,000 house, it's $6,000 that they would get as a rebate back. And you say, well, the state can't afford to do that. Well, keep in mind, the state's going to get 4.5% sales tax on the materials that go into that house. So our committee was challenged, stimulate housing development in South Dakota. And that's what we're doing with the excise tax program, trying to get the properties back on the tax rolls quicker. We've got a discretionary formula. I think it was dropped as well on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Stretches the discretionary period out. If you build a new house, property taxes are the one thing that you're concerned about. But the discretionary formula was 5 years. We stretched that out. The bill stretches it out to 10 years. Gives you 10 years to get a graduated scale before the full and true value of that property is taxed. And so it gives you a little bit of time to get into that home, get yourself financially set, and then the property taxes can go up over a period of 10 years. Our committee was set with the challenges of finding ways that we can create housing opportunities in South Dakota for years to come. And those bills are starting to come out now.
Win?
Well, again, not to take the whole morning on this topic, but it's really very important. I really want to publicly compliment Representative Chase because he had the good fortune in the assignment that he accepted to chair that committee. And there were 4 different meetings, and I was at 3 of them. They were pulling in information of all kinds from all sources, so it was a great process of gathering up the input. And I just want to say, like, some of the housing programs that I'd never heard of, like tiny houses. And I mean, tiny is like just a few hundred square feet. And I think there is actually one of them little neighborhoods going on in Sioux Falls. So some of those won't make sense in other parts of the state. But there were questions about, well, what can we do to really beef up manufactured housing, because you can build those in a hurry. You know, or the governor's houses that are built at the prison, you know, can we double that, for example? Well, so there's a lot of stuff looked at, but all of those, you still got to have the infrastructure and the streets and the water and the sewer and all that kind of stuff. So, so I think we're starting at the right spot here. But and of course, me being the new fellow on the block here, I really look to Roger, Representative Chase, as a great mentor for me. So I appreciate how helpful he's been. So I think that's a really good advantage that District 22 has. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, that was a good question to lead off with, because housing was one of the major components of the governor's package of desires, and I know that the Heron Development Corporation talks about the need for adequate housing just about every time we're together, and so this is good. It was good that we devote this amount of time to that subject. Okay, next question. Tim.
Guess I'll take the next one. House Bill 1111.
Tim.
I'm sorry, Tim Van Berken from Huron.
I know you.
I just have like your opinion on House Bill 1111. It's a bill that would allow a decision of a school district related to health or safety to be referred to a public vote within 60 days. So just be interested in what your thoughts are.
I'll jump right into it, Tim. I haven't read this bill, so I'll be honest in that respect. I'm looking at the representatives that have signed on to it as prime as well as co-sponsors, and it looks to me like it is, again, legislators that want to be a statewide school board that determines how you do your business on the local level. I think that just by looking at the names without even reading the bill, I think that it'll be a bill that'll be hard pressed to go very far. And I think that what's interesting to me, and, you know, we might as well get it right on out there, legislators run on the concept or the theory of local control when they're running for election. Seems to me that when they get to peer, they forget those two words. And quite frankly, it frustrates me. And these are some key people that look like they want to try to control how the schools are functioned and how they operate and how they treat people. And like I said, just looking at the sponsors without even reading the bill, I think it's going to have a hard time going anywhere.
I was spending too much time when I came in visiting with people instead of getting myself hooked up on the internet here, so it's coming now, unless you want to talk in a minute, Senator Wheeler.
Well, I can try and stall, but I'm a no. I mean, back to you, Lynn.
David, you're not going to get a chance because it's a House bill.
Yeah,
You
I
won't
know.
see it.
The chances of it getting to me, I think, are pretty slim. But no, I saw that. And I even told Senate Prime on that one that that's a no for me. I think we don't want to get into a situation where health decisions from a school board are getting referred. I mean, the school boards are subject to election every year, so they're very closely tied to the people. You have every year an opportunity, which you don't have in the legislature or for the governor. You know, we're up every 2 years, governor's up every 4 years, but your local, both your municipal and your school boards, there's an election every year. And so if people don't like the leadership they have in their local boards, they have an opportunity every year to make a change. And so adding in referrals for health and safety matters just doesn't make sense to me, because it will delay things. What it would do is, if there's a matter of health and safety that the school board needs to make a decision on, and a small enough minority want to refer it, well, that just delays that decision. And I mean, I don't know how delaying a health and safety decision for weeks or months while an election takes place is a good thing for students. So let's let our school boards do their job.
Further questions?
If I could just kind of follow up now. Finally, I'm up and running here, so sorry, apologize for that. But yeah, I looked at the list of sponsors too, along with Representative Chase, and otherwise I had not seen the bill, but I think that would be a big surprise if that would survive coming out of the committee. So it's a long shot.
Mr.
Gary
Mayor,
Harrington. Gary
even you, I
Harrington.
have to ask to identify yourself.
Gary Harrington, Mayor of Huron. A couple questions for the House people. One question for the House people. House Bill 1048, or 58, I know it came out 7-6 out of committee. Got their floor and got hammered. I know that. I just want to know what your feelings was on that bill.
Which one was it, Gary?
1058. Came out of the committee at 7-6, got on the floor and got beat 41-27 or something like that.
That was the edible gummy bears.
Yeah.
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 Okay, marijuana.
You're up next.
We had that bill, I think, on Thursday before we went home. And this bill dealt with edible gummy bears and marijuana in some type of a sweetener or candy flavor that is utilized by children that, if this was prohibited, then they have to use it as get their fix on marijuana either from a vaping or from smoking. And I held my nose and I voted to allow the gummy bears and the medicine available through, you know, the forms that children could utilize. And there was a pretty impassionate floor speech that perhaps one that kind of brought me to the fact that I can justify voting for this bill, or voting against the bill, so to speak, that it does allow for that flavored type of medicine, medical marijuana for children that need that type of aid and treatment. So the one thing that he emphasized was it's very difficult to get to these because of the packaging. And that made me feel a little bit better that you almost need to have parental involvement to get to this product. It's not something that's readily available in a package or a jar or anything like that. It is sealed to the point to where an adult needs to provide help to the individual to take it. The more marijuana bills that I vote on this year, I'm gonna hold my nose and vote one way or the other. I've never been a fan of marijuana. If my mother was here today, you know, I don't know that I could vote for these bills in her presence, but the people have spoken, and I'm going to try to do my very best to provide safe and effective products to the residents of South Dakota.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, that was just Thursday this week, and you asked about House Bill 1058, and that is the gummy bear one, we call it. And there was 1057, they were like back to back. The 1057 one also dealt with marijuana, but it was more about the ability or unauthorized transfer of cannabis and cannabis products, license, or I mean the medical card, you know, that a person gets issued. And my thoughts about the marijuana thing would be a lot like Representative Chase said. I hate to see all this stuff, but it's so hard to ignore the heavy vote of our citizens at the last election when it was 70% for medical. So I do nose holding there too. But as it turned out in this particular case, this representative that brought these bills, I mean, he's very well intentioned, and he studies the heck out of this stuff really extensively, which is quite good. But as I recall, I was a no on one bill and a yes on the other. It was the gummy bear that had all the discussion, and the next one could have just as well had a lot of discussion too, but it had almost none. I think people were tired, just wanted to go home and not fight the marijuana stuff anymore. But there will be plenty of others that marijuana bills still coming through, like.
Yeah.
So
The other question I got is for all three of you. It's the matter that growing their own plants in their houses. Now, that's a problem for our police force. How we enforce that, who would enforce that? And it'll eventually fall to the police force, I'm sure. They're not saying that now, but it will. I would say that I'm against that. That's why we have the dispensaries. We can get that through there. Then it can be regulated. Then it can also can be something that we know is healthy for our people, as far as not being tainted or something with fentanyl or something like that. So I'd be against growing in your own house. So have your opinion. I'll just sit down.
Thank you, Mayor.
I
Go ahead,
did.
David.
Oh, go.
Sure. So, we're gonna disagree on that one, mainly because it got passed twice. Voters voted for home grow. Home grow is a big discussion topic. It absolutely is. It divides people on the legislature as to whether or not we should have it. But home grow was approved by voters both in IM-26 last year and in Amendment A. Whether or not you believe Amendment A was validly voted on or not, obviously the Supreme Court overturned it, but still 53% of the people put a yes mark by that one. And they both had home grow in there. In fact, it was in the Attorney General's explanation. So to me, people who voted for our medical marijuana understood that home grow was part of it. So the rules on the home grow in IM-26 are fairly strict. It has to be in a secure, locked facility. It's not just a grow operation in your basement. There has to be some security in it. You have to have a specific cultivator license on your card, so you have already been approved by Department of Health to know that you're going to have it. And so if law enforcement needs to police this, if they think it's an illegal grow operation, if they can first check to see if the owner of the residence has a license from Department of Health to do that, or it's on their registry identification card. So there's some structures already in place. One way we are going to restrict that, and something that I supported this last week, is that the bill as written, the IM-26 as written, didn't have a cap on the number of plants. And so that'll be up this week in the Senate. We are going to put a cap on the number of plants, and the exact nature of that cap is still being discussed. Somewhere probably around 3 is what came out of committee, and I think that's going to be amended slightly. So that way it's not, again, a full grow operation. But the idea was, if you have, a person who has a green thumb and can grow it, that's fine. I mean, we have from what I've learned in studying marijuana over the last year, again, someone who's never used it, never grown it. I've had to learn it through listening to other people. It's not actually that easy to grow. It's not a weed that you just throw some water on and it grows. It actually is difficult to get to grow properly. And so I think that some reasonable restriction can be placed on there to make it safe and still make it enforceable by law enforcement if it's a problem. But I don't believe it's a danger to public safety to allow some people to have a few plants in their house. So 70% of the people wanted it, and I'm going to stick with them.
Again, thank you, Mayor, for the questions. We're off to a really good start because we've touched on two of the high-profile issues that the governor has identified.
I'm gonna let Lynn go first.
Go ahead.
Okay, no, I was just gonna follow up on the homegrown plant deal. In my case, I did not vote in favor of allowing homegrown, and I know that was part of the initiative that passed, but I ended up, I guess, settling on the law enforcement argument that there was a good case made of how you gonna police it, how you gonna enforce it. So that's why I decided let's go for not allowing any. But I don't know where that will end up when it finally gets done with the legislature.
The only thing I'll finalize with is that it's a tough plant to grow. And the anticipation, can you just envision this? It's kind of like the 8-year-old in front of the Christmas tree, waiting for Christmas Day to get there. And you're waiting for this plant to grow 120 days before you can actually harvest it and utilize it. I don't know that those plants will make it the full 120 days before the excitement and the usage of harvesting it and utilizing it by day 75. So it's one of those homegrown discussions that I guess I look at it from the standpoint, I'm a farmer. I grow food, but I'm not opposed to somebody having a garden in their backyard. And obviously their scale is going to be a whole lot less than what a dispensary is. And I think that, we have to come to the realization that people have the right to do whatever they can and want to do in their own home. And it's probably going to include, perhaps, some of them growing their own plants.
Just a quick follow-up on that.
Go ahead, dude.
Just so everyone knows in terms of where it's at, the House passed a bill to get rid of homegrown completely. That's been sent over to the Senate, and so that's in ours. And we'll have a bill that will likely have around three plants we're going to send back over to the Senate. So this will be a debate that we're going to have. And my guess is the House bill's chance in the Senate is not great. So. And I guess I'm completely messing up the timing on this, but I would just let people know that another factor in that is there is a petition circulating right now to put marijuana back on the ballot this fall. And so that will include homegrown. And so if the more the legislature tinkers with the program, the more the legislature gets away from what was in IM 26, the more likely we are to have it on the ballot on the fall. And so that's another reason that I am trying to stay close as we can to IM 26. Because I'm hoping the legislature can solve these issues where we have more debate, we have involvement from law enforcement, we have involvement from industry groups, and all throughout the process, instead of just having whatever the petition sponsors wrote up on the ballot again, people only get an up or down vote on it. Because if we don't solve it this session, it's going to be on the ballot in the fall.
Another question?
Hello.
Good morning.
Dustin from Huron. First question.
Did
is
identify yourself?
Dustin from Huron.
Okay.
First question is for all three. Will you protect the medical cannabis laws from unnecessary change? The second question, if you would change the medical law, how do you want to change it? And why? My third question is for Senator Wheeler. Will you oppose the medical cannabis home cultivation ban in this coming session? The next question for all three. Will you support a recreational cannabis legalization bill that we can restore Amendment A? 5, if not, would you pass a resolution putting another better legalization question in the 2020 ballot? The current initiative is being circulated is very limited.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
You want to start?
I can. So I think we covered some of that. The way I wrote those down. I mean, yes, as I said, I'm gonna try and protect it from unnecessary change. The changes that you're gonna have to look on this. Like I said, there's 20-some bills that came out of that interim study committee. Some range from, again, just some minor word changes that actually don't have any substantive change to larger changes. Some of the larger changes are the home grow issue that we talked about already. A couple of ones that I believe actually are good expansions of the program were that right now the IM26 is limited to only doctors, physicians, DOs and MDs. And PAs and nurse practitioners are unable to certify for marijuana. And under the law, what the doctor is doing is they're not prescribing marijuana. They certify you have a qualifying condition. So it's a diagnosing question, not a matter of prescription. And the committee, especially the medical industry individuals who are on the committee, agreed that PAs and NPs right now can diagnose and prescribe much harder drugs. They can prescribe and diagnose hydros, they can oxycodone, other opiates that are very addictive, and it just seemed incongruent to not allow them to certify for marijuana, that you have a qualifying condition. And so that is a bill that passed out of the Senate already and was heading over to the House, because that's good for our rural population in South Dakota, because not everybody has access to an MD. A lot of rural places, your primary care provider is a PA or a nurse practitioner. Just to try and run down quickly these last few questions. I already said, yeah, I'm going to oppose the home cultivation ban when it gets over to the Senate. Recreational marijuana, yes, I will be supporting what's called SB3. SB3 is the recreational program that came out of the summer study. And again, that is just a matter of straight politics. The fact that the people voted for it once, I believe, if it's on the ballot again, it will get approved again. And I would rather have a bill that gets everybody to the table. I'm actually have meetings this week to meet with different stakeholders to try and make sure that a recreational marijuana bill has input from everybody: law enforcement, industry, health professionals. So that is see if we can find that grand bargain on the issue, that will get the matter resolved legislatively, instead of, again, whatever shows up on the ballot this year or next year or the next time. So I'm hoping that we can get this done and just get the issue resolved. So that's my approach to marijuana this year.
I would echo a lot of the same comments that Senator Wheeler just talked about. We look at two things. We've got recreational marijuana and we've got medicinal marijuana. And I think we're going to try to do our very best to make sure that the medicinal side takes care of the products and gets that access to people that really need it for chronic pain or for issues along that line. On the recreational side or adult use side, my concern is that we as a legislature are going to try to move forward to get something in statute so we don't have to do this on an annual or every election cycle to where we have this as a ballot issue that people have to vote on. People vote for their legislators to make hard decisions and come up with public policy that we can support and get behind. But I'm afraid as a legislature, regardless of what we do, it's not going to be enough. I think they're still going to want more. But as legislators, we're going to try to do it in a safe fashion to where it can be utilized and people can get adult use But I'm just afraid that regardless of what we do, it's not going to be enough, and it'll still be a ballot issue this fall. But we're going to do our best. We in the legislature are talking about it, debating it. There's a lot of time being devoted, just like today, to this subject.
Sure. Thank you. One of the things that we need to keep in mind is when some of these laws are passed, like the IM-26 initiative, then a lot of times there are rules that need to get promulgated, is a fancy word for it. So you don't just pass a law and then that's the end of it. A lot of times there's all kinds of rules that get established. Well, there was a rules committee working on a lot of that this summer, and that came up too when we were talking about the gummy bear deal, that the argument there was made that those that served on that committee had addressed that really quite well. And the only argument that was left on that piece was, well, that's nice, but rules can be changed. So that's why we want to try to get this codified into law, which didn't happen that day. But even when a law is passed, it can be changed. So that's one thing to keep in mind with the marijuana laws. So on the matter of recreational, I've been waiting to see a bill come through, and because I know it was talked about a lot, that yes, the legislature's working very diligently to get a recreational bill, and maybe it is a Senate Bill 3, because I haven't looked at it yet, but that there would be a caveat in there that you pass this recreational marijuana bill into law, but that it also gets essentially referred to the people to vote on at the next election, so that it isn't just the legislature approving marijuana all by itself for recreational use, but it takes one more vote of the people to get there. I don't know if either of you can speak any more to that, but because I haven't talked to anybody in the last couple of weeks about it. With that kind of a bill, if that's what it is, I think that's about the only way that I'd be a yes vote for a recreational bill, because it would leave the final step back up to the people.
Sure. Again, excellent question, because, and I guess to my way of thinking, recreational marijuana probably has not received the attention that it, in respect to what medical marijuana, but it's an issue that's before us, and you recognize, the legislators recognize it. Next question.
If I could do one more follow-up on that. I also understood that the people that want to, are circulating the petition for recreational marijuana on an initiative basis, or whatever they come back to us on it, that if the legislature did a good enough job, whatever that is, on this recreational bill that's going to get referred to the people, that then maybe they would pull their petition. I had heard that too.
That is absolutely part of the conversation.
This is a pretty broad discussion, and perhaps the response has not been what the questioner had originally hoped for. But again, this is probably time to spend a little one-on-one conversation with the legislators. Okay, next question. We really have just room for one more question, so let's come with it.
I guess I have a question. It's more of a asking something that probably hasn't been covered so far. Bill Kirker, I'm a county resident, and we've got a gun range out here that belongs to the Isaac Walton League. And that league has kind of turned some of their responsibilities over to some of the gun organizations and the sportsman's club. In the United States, there is a program called the Pittman-Roberts Act, which charges a tax on every bullet, every rifle, every pistol, every bow, every arrow. Anything that has to do with any type of shooting sports is taxed at the factory level. There's over $1 billion in that fund right now, not million, billion. And fortunately, our federal legislators, government employees haven't figured out a way to break that fund open. Otherwise, they'd probably use it for something else. But South Dakota right now has an authorization through the Game Fish and Parks Department to use that money for shooting sports, wildlife recovery, that sort of thing. We have a plan right now out at this gun range for about a $500,000 to $600,000 renovation of this gun range. And it keeps getting put off because it seems as though somewhere along the line at the state level, somebody else is more important than we are. We had 900 private individual shooters show up out there at this gun range this last year, which is quite a few considering there's, if you go to Arizona and they have a gun range that has probably over 100 lanes to shoot in, there's 20,000 people shoot in a year.
Now, Bill, there is a bill that I think that addresses this. What's your question?
I'm not aware of it that there was. What we're trying to find out now is why they keep getting put off all the time for this area. I understand now Rapid City's got something going on with their gun range out there, and I don't know if they think it's more important or what.
Okay, well,
We're
we'll
not
toss it
hearing
off to the legislators and see what response.
Just trying to learn if somebody can
Thank you.
look into it and find out what's going on. I guess that's mainly what I'm looking at.
Just a couple comments I could make on that. The range in Rapid City, Game Fish, Ag and Natural Resource Committee, we heard that, I think it was earlier last week. And so that's going to be some more work done on that. But that'll be a brand new range just north of Rapid City. And so the Putnam Bowes tax was discussed a lot, and the $1 billion number I think was pretty close to what I heard there. And I was thinking about our shooting range that you're referring to here by the Isaac Walton League, and thinking, you know, I've been out there a time or two and sighted my rifle in, and maybe it could use some improvements. And so I hadn't heard that there was maybe a $600,000 possible project there. So I think it would be a very positive thing to.
Well, Pittman Roberts has approved our money.
Yeah.
The way it works is that they give us 75% of the money, 75% of the $500,000 to $600,000. The Game Fish and Parks Department or the state kicks in 15%, and the city and local kicks in 10%. So we're kind of, trying to figure out where we'll stand on this deal. I'm with the Silhouette Club here in town, which we shoot every Tuesday night, and we've had information about this going on for about 3 or 4 years now. And now, if they stay on the program they're at, it's not going to be until July of 2023 before the money's released to get anything done.
Why don't we do this from my perspective? Why don't you call me? You've got my number. It's in the paper and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I know the Game Fish and Park Secretary personally, and I can do some follow-up on that.
Very good. Thank you.
I'll follow up on it too. Yeah, we had that bill in Ag this past week, the new shooting range north and east of Rapid City. It's actually just a mile or two into Meade County. And we had very good debate on that bill in committee. And there's some landowners that maybe had more telling testimony than what Game Fish and Parks came up with. But one of the comments that I remember hearing was in the testimony, 70% of the funds that are contributed to the Pittman Roberts are actually from people that do shooting sport rather than hunting. And so that has kind of transitioned from hunting to the sport of shooting. So more money is contributed by, clay pigeons and silhouettes and things along that line. One of the comments that I remember hearing on the floor from Tom Kirschman from the Game Fish and Parks, who was actually the one leading the shooting range northeast of Rapid City, he mentioned Huron is on the radar screen for an improvement to the Isaac Walton League. So I know it's coming, I know it's planned, but that is one that's coming down the pike. And Tom told me face to face that Huron is on the plan for the future.
We just don't know. I mean, we were told 3 years ago that it was going to happen, and 2 years ago it was going to happen. This year it's going to happen.
Well, the interesting thing is, Bill, we have a meeting with Game Fish and Parks at Monday at 11 o'clock in the governor's large conference room. And when it comes time for them to really get what they need, we sometimes get what we want. So, we're gonna have a nice discussion in the Governor's Large Conference Room at 11 o'clock on Monday morning. So,
Very good.
good timing. Thanks for bringing it
Just
up.
happened to drive by, saw the cars, and that's why I pulled in, so I'm glad I did.
Thank you, Bill. Well, we've come to the time,
I just want to follow up on that. I've seen your plan, and the Mayor Paul has seen your plan. They've come in and talked to us and showed us their plan, and we certainly would be enthused to have that upgraded out there, and whatever money you guys can propose for that, we'd certainly appreciate.
okay, we'll move into the opportunity for the legislators to each have 2 minutes to make some closing remarks, and we start in the opposite order of how we begin. So Senator Wheeler, you get the 2 minutes first.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming out and speaking, spending time with us and being interested in the legislature. Obviously, we'll all be available afterwards and anytime. You can call us, email us. That's a great way to let us know what's going on. Obviously, we spent a lot of time here on two topics that are very prevalent in the legislature this year, which was good that we're talking about those issues that everybody else is talking about. It's good that we have that conversation. But be sure you contact us about those other bills that you maybe see as you're scrolling through and looking at things that we don't hear about. Because there's a lot, there's hundreds of bills here we had to talk about, and some of them get very little discussion. Some of them I don't know anything about until someone calls me and tells me, hey, what's up with this? What does this mean? And I'll look it up and then figure out what, I got to learn about it. So it's citizen input is always vital to what we do, because we need to hear from you if it's an area that you are passionate about or even have knowledge about, it's an industry you worked in. We're not experts at everything, and so please call me, please email me about any issues you have so that we can use that going forward and build our knowledge base so we can be knowledgeable about the subjects that we have to vote on in committees and on the floor. So I'll leave with that. Thank you.
Next up, Representative Chase.
I get the same process because I'm number two. I'm in the middle. So I want to thank you for coming out today. This is what makes a citizen legislature active, is people that, like you, that come and visit with us on a point to where we can communicate face-to-face, and ask questions to us. But certainly we're accessible via email and text messaging. One of the bills that Representative Schneider talked about was the Custer State Park Campground. And those bills, or those emails, have been coming in for over a week, and hot and heavy. And I know I've had well over 500 opposed to it, and maybe 5 in favor of it. Just to kind of give you an idea of how many emails that come in on a daily basis. I brought this fine machine home last Saturday morning, checked on it about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I checked on it next Sunday at 4 o'clock. So from Saturday morning at 9 until Sunday afternoon at 4, at 232 emails. Probably 90% of them dealt with House Bill 1048 and the campground. But we try to scan through and look at all of them. And to go right along with Senator Wheeler's comments, when you want to reach out to us on a bill, please don't write a 3-page letter. Give us a paragraph, let us know who you are, where you live, and what your comments are. Because when you get 232 and you got to scroll through, you're not going to read a 3-page letter. It's going to get deleted. But we really try to emphasize on getting back to the people that make contact to us from our district. So communicate with us, be in touch, and we're available whenever you need to talk. So have a great week, and keep watching what happens in the South Dakota legislature. There's lots to come.
Representative Schneider.
Yeah, thank you. Representative Chase's last comment, keep watching, there's a lot to come. I think that's almost an understatement from what it looks like, but exactly right. I just, too, want to thank you for the privilege to work with all of you and the District 22 residents. And we haven't talked about this morning, but with the legislative redistricting that got done late last fall, which has to be accomplished every 10 years. It's a task of the legislature as a result of the population census. We're still representing the traditional, I'll call it, District 22 of Beetle and Kingsbury County for this session. So we're kind of faced with working the new part of the district too at the same time to try to be as prepared as we can with the addition of Spink, and we'll have the loss of Kingsbury, and we have a little southwest corner of Clark County that also becomes the new District 22, but all of Beetle County remains intact as it was in District 22 before, which was one of the things that was really important to me, and we would have liked to get Kingsbury County as well. So that's all done now, but our friends to the north in Spink County will be our new addition to District 22, so we look forward to representing them as well. I would just otherwise add, again, thanks for the privilege to work with you. I am finishing my second year, my first term, and so I'm trying to learn as fast as I can drink from a water hose, and appreciate everybody's patience. But call me anytime. I'm always open to listen and try to be as helpful as I can for what's important to you. So thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. And we have a couple announcements before we wrap up. Today, until 3 o'clock, is what's called Winterfest, which is taking place at the Norbury Exhibit Hall out at the State Fairgrounds. Kind of a little fun event that might be interested in taking in. Also today is what's called the Corinne New Year celebration. And this is an opportunity for the Corinne community to share with the people of Huron some of their culture in the way of food. They have a buffet that you'll have a chance to participate in. See some dancing that's native to their culture, and also so that takes place at the Huron Community Center. Today also is Crazy Days on Main Street in Huron, well, and all of the retail community. Now, we'd like to thank and recognize our legislators, and I can share with you, you're very fortunate to be blessed with 3 people who are open-minded to issues like has been mentioned. You know, there are a lot of bills that are introduced that maybe have no awareness that that's even important, but every bill is important to somebody, and our legislators are willing to listen to those. And this is opposed to, you know, we do have out of 105 legislators in the legislature. We have unfortunately some that really are there only for one purpose, single issue people that really pay no attention to things that are other things that are important. So with that in mind, join me in giving our legislators a round of applause.
Sorry, yes, we'll give them a round of applause, but before we end up, we forgot to put on your speaking points that our next coffee with the legislators will be February 12th, Saturday, February 12th, at the Huron Community Campus Fine Arts Building. And then the final one will be February 26th. So just be looking out for those, and I hope we get to see as good of a show up of people, not show necessarily, but show of people or more that can come to those sessions also. So thank you all for being here.